This meeting in Congress was scheduled on UFOs and drones for today. Last night, it was suddenly postponed. I don't think there's anything suspicious about that. I think they just don't give a damn. Instead, a House subcommittee hearing was held to investigate all those unidentified drones that were flying around the bases. One of the witnesses issued a dire warning I want you to hear.
The homeland is no longer a sanctuary. And should our adversary choose to employ drones for surveillance or even attack, we would not be prepared to adequately defend our homeland and only marginally capable to defend our military installations.
See, that's the concern. The administration has said since the mystery drones were FAA approved, suggesting that they could be part of a U.S. Government program so that, they understand it. But a lot of experts in this area are scratching their heads, including Luis Elizondo, led the Defense Department's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. It's good to see you, big man. Thank you for doing this for me.
Chris, always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Doesn't pass the smell test, what I heard today. Tell me why.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. Look, we've been saying now for years, ever since, frankly, September 11th, that we do not have complete U.S. air domain awareness of our skies. The bottom line is we do not know what's in our skies all the time. And this hearing is yet another glaring example of the truth. We had two administrations previously say, well, these are all authorized flights and FAA is aware of them. And back in November, FAA themselves had said that, oh, yeah, we know what all these flights are. The reality is Senator Cory Booker himself from New Jersey spoke to the FAA. And on the record, he said, no, guess what? FAA does not know what all these drones are. And furthermore, you do not close sensitive military installations and airspace because you have an authorized drone flight. That does not make sense. And you heard it today. Again, we simply do not know what's in our skies. And Chris, let me add this. Do you realize now, over the last year and a half in Ukraine, that drones have been weaponized to such a degree that there are more casualties now caused by drones than artillery for the first time in warfare history. So think about now the vulnerability of our country as these quote-unquote drones, mysterious drones, fly completely unchallenged. We still don't know where they're coming from. We still don't know who's behind the wheel. We still don't know where they're going. This is a big problem, and we've known about it for a long time.
What is your major suspicion about what they're not telling us?
Well, I think the reason why they're not telling us is because they simply don't know. And that is a problem in itself. We've made recommendations in the past that there should be some sort of national strategy and some sort of national intelligence estimate done every year, like on other hard targets. And I think this country deserves to have a similar apparatus. Imagine a national intelligence estimate every year that gets promulgated, and then some sort of national strategy that follows it to try to help us figure out just what's going on and plug some of these intelligence gaps.
We both know how this is going to go, and it's a God forbid, and I hate saying it, but there's only one way that this changes. One, you get a big leaker. Two, you have a God forbid. You have a God forbid where something happens that didn't need to happen, and then they're going to take action. And that's what I don't want it to come to.
Yeah.
I
agree with you. I mean, I think that's the worst case scenario, right? Is that we have some sort of catastrophic event that forces us to do something when, frankly, we've known about the problem all along.
I know. I don't like it. But, this is one of those deals where they only give a damn if they can blame the other side for it, right? Everything's all partisan all the time. Yeah. And if this isn't on somebody's watch, but when it happens, the other side will go crazy about it. Mr. Elizondo, thank you for keeping us honest on this and keeping us informed. I'm always a call away. It's good to see you.
Always my honor and privilege. Thank you so much for having me.
Being blown off course. The multitude of drones reported flying over bases in the past several years revealed a coordinated effort by our adversaries to collect valuable intelligence and surveillance of some of our most sensitive military equipment. These incursions often are designed to disrupt important trainings and create chaos for a number of reasons. Number one, base commanders have inadequate or non-existent monitoring capabilities. Two, a near total lack of counter-drone capabilities. Three, unclear standard operating procedures to guide base commanders' responses and decision-making. And finally, four, ambiguous legal authorities both on and off base. This threat is magnified by the complex regulatory and prosecutorial framework that was patched together by the previous administration in what I would argue is a poor attempt to address this issue. Right now, the Department of Defense, Federal Aviation Administration, Intelligence Community, Department of Justice, and Department of Homeland Security are all involved in some aspects of the counter-UAS efforts. As a result, there is no agency with primary authority on countering drone incursions, leading to confusion and, more importantly, gaps on how to identify and mitigate this threat. This interagency failure was on full display last winter when hundreds of drones were spotted in the skies above New Jersey and other parts of the Northeast. After several temporary flight restrictions and mass confusion among state, local, and federal partners, the Biden administration provided the public no answers what was happening above them. However, with only a few weeks of the current administration taking office, they revealed that the drones over New Jersey were actually authorized by the FAA. This instance raises multiple questions as to why the previous administration left the American people in the dark for over a month when they knew the simple truth. Another notable incident occurred at Langley Air Force Base in December of 2023. Over 17 days, unidentified drones repeatedly breached our sensitive military airspace, one of most America's critical installations. The F-22 Raptor squadrons were moved to alternate bases to lessen exposure, and discussions were initiated on installing physical countermeasures. These are not isolated incidents. In February, the commander of NORAD and NORTHCOM testified to Congress that there were over 350 detections of drones at 100 different military installations last year alone. Additionally, since 2023, 2 Chinese nationals have been arrested for illegally flying drones over military installations to conduct surveillance. One of these individuals was caught attempting to flee the U.S. and return to China with sensitive footage he had recorded. Today, this committee will hear from officials from the Department of Defense on what the Trump administration is doing to help combat this issue and bring an end to these illegal drone incursions. We must demand full accountability, expedited technological upgrades, and enhanced oversight to safeguard our sovereignty and ensure that our military remains unexposed to foreign surveillance and potential threats. I'm hopeful that our witnesses here today have suggestions on how Congress can help empower the right federal agencies to combat this problem and secure the skies above our military bases.
CEO of Airspace Link, Michael Helander. Michael, so great to have you. You know, there is so much ambiguity around all of this. Do you have any major concerns about these sightings? And is there an explanation that makes sense to you?
Yeah, it's bothersome in a couple ways. One is at Airspace Link, we're supporting recreational pilots up into the Department of Defense. And there is an issue with just recreational pilots. And then there's Part 107 pilots that are following certain rules and can follow separate rules. And then you have public safety and sheriff's departments that have another set of rules. And then you have Department of Defense. And what's happening is there is technology out there, but maybe it's being used in fragments. And, you know, as soon as if the drone is outside the fence line of these military bases, they don't have authority. So, you know, what we're looking at is some solutions and working with, I think, great example is Joint Base Charleston. That's complicated where we're working with the Air Force, but then they have general aviation and then they're flying drones and then each group is flying their own drones and then people are flying drones outside the fence line in the residential area, and they're trying to put a process and a shared system in place for the military base, the people on the base, the public safety of the cities that are surrounding the area, to be able to UAS detection, who's flying where, what, and when. So that's some of the challenges we're up against is understanding who's flying where, what, and when, and making sure they have the technology, that people have the technology, because it's there. They haven't purchased it. The rules and regulations are there. It's just how do you coordinate that between all these levels of government? Right.
Well, that's a really interesting look behind the scenes there. What are you hoping to take away from this hearing upcoming?
There is a path forward. As a service supplier of low altitude, helping support companies fly here in the United States in partnership with the FAA is a way that the local cities and the communities can start to have the technology, but also have that data exchange between the FAA and the military bases and the communities together so that they can truly understand who's doing what, where, and when. And first is what is happening, because there are drone incursions happening. But whose are they? You know, and when it goes inside the fence line, then back outside the fence line, and there's just a lot of jurisdictional issues that need to be bubbled to the surface of how to solve that.
Right. You know, I found it fascinating that the president, before being reelected, he had criticized Joe Biden for not saying much on this topic. We had this in the setup, saying essentially that the government knows exactly what's going on. And when I get into office, I'll tell the American people. And he did tell a little bit more than President Biden, but there's still all this ambiguity that remains. What insights do you glean from that reality?
I would say probably 95% of the operations and things we're seeing were fine. There was some issues, again, that we're hearing, some rumblings, that there was drones either removing their transponders or remote ID and going in dark, and in some cases testing these bases. But again, as soon as they're off the runway out into the city, but they still can't take off because they're in the glide path, they can't do anything. And I think there's some holes there. I think, again, the technology, and we have a good understanding of what's happening on the airspace, but no one else does. And that's the scary part, is that they don't know because they have no insights to what's happening over their heads, especially from a public safety agency.
You know, if you get some clear direction from this hearing that's set to happen any moment now, how quickly do you believe different entities may be able to determine what exactly is happening in our skies?
Here's what they can do, is provide the technology or mechanisms through Department of Homeland Security for communities and bases to purchase the technology to understand what is that, not necessarily taking the drones down, but UAS detection, counter UAS is understanding what's out there. Also manned aircraft detection, being able to distinguish between a drone and an aircraft. If you can understand what's happening in your airspace, you at least know 95% of what's happening. Then you can isolate what those bad actors are, those 5% you don't know what are, and now you can take action. Today, just as all of them could be bad actors if you don't have the tools to understand what's happening.
Yeah, well, I'm out of time, but do you think we could get an answer this year?
Yes, I'm hopeful that we will. I have a feeling this is a national security issue. We need to probably push down pretty hard to move this forward.
Speak here today. The events of December 2023 at Joint Base Langley-Eustis served to focus and energize DoD's counter-small UAS efforts in the homeland. During the event, DoD struggled to address the incursions in a timely and effective fashion, owing at least in part to challenges within the DoD and our ability to implement a relatively untested interagency coordination process. To some extent, those challenges from JBLE still exist. However, we have worked since then to improve and refine our processes and coordination efforts, and we have seen improvements in subsequent responses. I can assure the committee that the department is as frustrated by these events as you are. Second, generating better domain awareness is essential to developing an understanding of what is flying in our airspace and how to separate the negligent from the nefarious. This is the fundamental issue we saw at Langley in New Jersey. DoD is working through venues like the Joint Rapid Acquisition Cell, the JRAC, to rapidly acquire the right equipment and to give commanders better tools to understand the operating environment and the ability to effectively conduct non-kinetic and kinetic mitigations. Commander U.S. Northcom phrased it this way in his posture hearing in February: "You can't defeat what you can't see."